Way of Kings, and today we're on chapter... Oh, I've actually forgotten to pre-open the book. Hang on a minute. Wait a minute. 11! Droplets! 3 of 16 ruled, goes the quote at the start of the chapter that we're all going like, what are those mystery quotes all about? 3 of 16 ruled, but now the broken one reigns. So we return back to the war camps, and there's Kaladin all depressed, and it's raining. In fact, it's really raining. It's been a storm, like a stormlight storm. What do they call those? A high storm. It's been a high storm. There's Gaz outside, jingling his little collection of spheres about. He's not jingling them about. He's put them in a basket, and he's hung them outside to be infused with stormlight. And, you know, we're reminded that you can infuse the gems, the jewels inside the spheres. You can infuse them with stormlight in a variety of different ways. You can take them to the bank. You can give them the spheres and the sort of dull ones, and they'll give you infused ones, and then they'll infuse the ones you gave them. Imagine what it must be ace at the bank. Imagine being at the bank. You know, you open like the vault and there's just a load of marbles that are glowing, and they're really, really glowing because they've been infused. Whoa, that'd be nice. I suppose, well, they wouldn't be in the vault, would they? They'd be in, I don't know. How would they infuse them if there hadn't been a high storm recently? Maybe they don't. Maybe all of the currency of the entire land sort of gradually dulls down between high storms or something like that. Can't remember reading anything about that. There's been another book by now. Maybe it's in book 2. Maybe it's in book 1 and I just can't remember. There's a lot of book here. A lot of book to get through. That's why I'm trying to get back through it. And if he hasn't explained it by the end of book 2, then I shall just have to write to Brandon and be like, Brandon, explain this. So anyway, Gaz is outside doing that, and along comes Kaladin, and Gaz goes, oh, hello, your lordship. What you doing out here? And Kaladin goes, herb. And Gaz goes, you what? And Kaladin goes, herb. And he goes, what? And Kaladin goes, hang on a minute. Herb. 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 There we go, that's it. And he goes, what? And he goes, I'm at my lowest ebb. Because he's really at his lowest ebb. So he goes over to the Honour Chasm. Now, we've heard about the Honour Chasm before. The only way out for bridgemen. And there's a certain amount of respect given to bridgemen who are prepared to go through with it. So Gaz goes, oh dear, all right, stops yelling at him a little bit, because he was yelling at him before, and goes, well, leave your shoes and your jacket thingy behind, because I don't want to send anyone down there to get them off you. And he does. Kaladin strips off, leaves his shoes and his jacket there on the floor, and goes off to the Honour Chasm, because he really means it. He really means it. He's going to jump, because it's the only option he's got. All he's got in his life is just going over there with the bridgemen and getting shot at with arrows, and everybody dies. Everyone's died. They've just been on another one. Everyone's died. The bridge leader died. I can't remember who the bridge leader was. I thought it was Gaz, but there was a bridge leader, and that guy's died. Everybody's died, and of course the kid who reminded him of this other kid called Tien, he's died, and Kaladin's just got, that's it. He's just like, no, I've got nothing else. I can't pretend that there's anything even remotely salvageable about my life right now. Off I go. And off he goes. And just as he's about to jump off, he's actually got one foot over the chasm, along comes Syl. Syl comes back. We thought she'd just got all depressed and left. Turns out she was going off to fetch something. And she comes back with the leaf, the kind of leaf that Kaladin used to keep. Do you remember he used to keep in his belt, and then he crushed it up, and then it all went wrong, or it blew away or something went wrong. And after that moment, Syl, like with the sort of naivety of a child or a dog or something, has just seen two things and made a connection that's not quite right. She saw that when he had that leaf, there was still hope somewhere in him. But that day when he left it, that was the last moment of hope crumbling away from him. And so she's gone off, found this leaf, and now she comes along and presents it to him. And it doesn't actually work, but it does work. It does cheer him up. She brought it as a way of bringing the old Kaladin back, and in a sense that works, because the new Kaladin, the depressed Kaladin, the Kaladin who's got no hope and can't cope with the situation, that was almost a new Kaladin. Because remember, he used to be this amazing hotshot soldier guy, and this leaf kind of banishes that old Kaladin away. He strides off now with new purpose, but he doesn't really see it that way. More than the return of an old Kaladin, he sees it as the birth of a new one that's going to take charge. When he goes back and meets Gaz again, that's exactly what he does. And he strikes up a bargain. And by strikes up a bargain, what I mean is that he basically grabs his throat and slams him onto the ground and holds him there by his throat and forces him to go along with the bargain. But Kaladin's no fool, and he knows that if he just did that and then made some threats and struck up a bargain, well, the minute Gaz was back in the position of power, he would strike back. He would either, just punch him himself, or he would get his men, or whatever. He might throw him off the chasm for all we know. So Kaladin makes a bit of a... he sweetens the deal a little bit. He's going to stop paying his slave debt, he's going to start taking his wages, which isn't much, but for every 5 marks that Kaladin is entitled to, Gaz gets to keep 1. This is very clever and very shrewd, because now, even though that's not really much money, well now, Gaz actually wants Kaladin to remain alive, because he's a source of income, however small. And we get the sense that Kaladin has some sort of plan in mind, why he's saving up the money that he's going to make. So everything about his relationship with Gaz has suddenly changed. He's put himself in a position of power, Gaz is going to have to be a bit less antagonistic towards him, and, importantly, Kaladin is now the leader of Bridge 4. He is the bridge leader. Now, we've already heard in previous chapters about how the tradition among the bridge men is there's just no point learning each other's names, because you don't want to do that, because you're going to become friends, or at least, you know, knowing each other's name is going to be, you know, in some way it'll connect you to them, and then they'll just die, and you'll feel worse, so it's best never to know who your company is. Well, now that Kaladin's the bridge leader, he goes straight into the barracks, he starts waking them up, and he asks them their names. And the first man that he wakes up is older, with drooping cheeks, brown eyes, and close-cropped, white-salted hair. His beard was short, and he didn't have a slave mark, and his name is Teft. This is not the last time we're going to meet Teft, so keep him in your memory. However, it is the last time we're going to meet him for a little while, so I think it's a little bit odd that he introduces him here. A bit of info that we have to kind of keep hold of without necessarily knowing we were supposed to keep hold of it. Well, I'm telling you to keep hold of it. Teft. Older man, sunken cheeks, brown eyes, close-cropped hair, white-salted, short beard, no slave mark, Teft. And in that moment, he's made a connection on the team, he's presented himself as the new leader, he's earned his first droplet of, you know, sort of trust and respect as the leader, and he has committed to making his life his own again in some way, which I found to be really refreshing. There's something you might have noticed about all my videos about the Kaladin chapters, which is that I always talk about how they could be these incredibly difficult affairs, incredibly depressing to read and a slog to get through, and my memory of them from when I first read through it is of this long slog. However, I've been really pleasantly surprised to notice that there's really not that many chapters of this, and something always moves on, something always advances and happens in every single one of them, so that you don't feel like you're just on this endless journey, but it's written in such a way that you do feel like Kaladin is. So there is this sense of this sort of drawn out, lengthy depression, but it's not actually there, which explains how, like, with a book this size, this length, I just trip-trapped all the way through it, hop and skip, clippity-clop, hippity-hop, and I was at the end of the book. This is something I've struggled with a number of books this sort of size, but not this one. I raced through this one. When I originally read the book, by the way, I always knew I was going to do this project, so I wrote detailed notes about every chapter, and those notes would include what my response to each chapter was. So when I've been telling you my responses to each chapter, it's been the fresh response that I had the first time I read the chapter. And in the case of this chapter, my response, all it says is, cool! Because it is cool, you know, there was me thinking that, like, this situation was going to last for, like, the length of the book, and in a way, it kind of does. But we've moved on a significant step, which tells us that it's going to continue to move on in significant steps. Kaladin has taken charge, and although he's in a terrible situation and he can't get out of it, he's the leader of the terrible situation. There aren't very many world details revealed in this chapter, so this video will be mercifully short. Looks like we're now into the section of the book where I can do shorter videos instead of having to ramble on for like half an hour or so. Phew! Good. I might get through this yet. We learn that an hour before the Riddens is the time when it's safe to go out in a high storm. We learn that some people have a superstition where they think that the shades of the lost radiance haunt the storms, stealing spheres. We learn that storm water, in other words the rain that rains during a high storm, is better for plants. You know, it kind of, you know, almost magically grows them more than normal rainwater would do. And this has been recently scientifically proven, but farmers have known it for just the whole time there's been farmers. Of course they have. We learn that life spren, which I'm not sure we've had before. Have we had life spren before? Well, here they're described as little green blips of light, brighter than sil, but small as spores, and they dance among the plants, dodging raindrops. So that's life spren. And I think that's all the world building notes we have in this chapter, which means that as Kaladin has turned a corner, so have we, for we find ourselves at the end of part 1. Yeah! Next time we're going to have some interludes, starring Ishik. Who? Nan Balat. Ooh, isn't that Shalon's brother? And Seth. Remember Seth? The assassin from the beginning. We're going to get to catch up with him again. Way! So, see you next time for more Way of Kings. Obviously, because this is a series of videos about the Way of Kings, so it'd be weird if I suddenly just did like Pride and Prejudice or something. She saw that when he had that leaf.